The metal teeth of my harvester stopped just inches from her Porsche's cherry red rear bumper. The only thing standing between 2 tons of angry steel and that pristine vehicle was a pair of fuzzy dice hanging from the rearview mirror. I could hear my cows bellowing from the barn behind the truck, hungry and angry. I could even hear Karen's voice from earlier that morning, all smug, blocking the barn door with her keys in hand, saying, "It's just for a few hours, babe. I need the aesthetic for my yoga retreat." My hands tightened around the steering wheel as the engine roared to life, and I realized I was about to do something unforgettable, maybe even unforgivable, depending on whose side you were on. But all I could think was, not today, Karen. Not during feed time. 12 hours earlier, I was sitting on the porch, sipping lukewarm coffee, watching the sun creep over the cornfields, when Roy rolled up in his beat-up pickup truck to drop off a new water tank for the goat. We chatted about the heat wave, the price of diesel, and how Martha's prize hen was now brooding on a pile of golf balls. Small-town stuff. Peaceful. Predictable. That was until Karen showed up at the farmer's market like a storm cloud in Lululemon. She was new to town, one of those HOA royalty types who treated rural life like a weekend Instagram filter. Her husband made money from something involving tech and teeth. I never did get a straight answer. What mattered was she'd been poking her nose into farm business lately, trying to turn our town into her version of a wellness utopia. This morning she lost it over a missing jar of Manuka honey from her pre-ordered stock and accused me of hoarding it for my livestock. I laughed because the goats do like sweet things, but that didn't help. She threw a tantrum, a full-on, foot-stomping, high-pitched spectacle in front of half the town, before storming off, yelling that I'd regret embarrassing her in public. I didn't think much of it until I came back to the farm and found her Porsche backed up to my barn door, so tight it was practically kissing the lock. No note, no explanation, just Karen's signature move. Entitlement parked on 4 wheels with a hint of citrusy air freshener. I called her. No answer. Texted. Nothing. I even walked down to the yoga camp she was hosting a few fields over, but got intercepted by one of her personal assistants, who looked like he'd been trained in polite hostility. I paced. I fumed. And then I heard the cows. It was nearly noon by then, and the inside of the barn was cooking. I had fans installed, sure, but without the doors open to circulate air, the temperature climbed fast. That's when it stopped being annoying and started being dangerous. Livestock doesn't care about petty vendettas. They just need care. I called the sheriff thinking maybe they could tow it. But since it wasn't technically a public road, they couldn't touch it without a court order. Days, they said. Maybe hours. I called Roy. He said what I already knew. You're going to have to move that thing yourself. You still got the big green beast gassed up. The big green beast. My harvester. My pride and joy. The one I only pulled out during peak season or when things got biblical. It had blades the size of surfboards and an engine that could wake the dead. And it just so happened to be parked 30 feet away, purring with fuel, ready for glory. I didn't go rogue immediately. I tried common sense. I taped a polite warning note to the car, gave it another hour, even went to town hoping she'd come to her senses. When I got back and saw her lounging under a canopy, laughing with a circle of crystal-wearing influencers, I made my choice. I called Martha first. She used to be a lawyer before she traded it all for goat cheese and solitude. "You're covered," she said after a quick read-through of local agriculture laws. Emergency livestock access on private land with equipment necessary for animal welfare. Take pictures. Film everything. Wear a nice hat. So I rallied the town. Or at least Roy, Martha, and the intern who milks cows on weekends. They brought phones, lawn chairs, and sweet tea. I climbed into the harvester, adjusted the seat, turned the ignition, and rolled forward. Real slow. Real steady. It was like preparing for a mechanical ballet with a metal-crunching finale. The first touch was subtle. A slight nudge. The Porsche creaked like an aluminum can under a boot. The second was more assertive. The hood began to crumple. The mirror snapped off. I kept filming. Everyone was silent except Roy, who muttered, "Holy moly," and Martha, who whispered, "This is better than cable." By the time the front end was mashed into modern art, I had enough space to open the barn doors wide. The rush of fresh air into that heat box made the cows practically cheer. They didn't care about lawsuits or yoga or porches. They just wanted to breathe, eat, and moo. I parked the harvester, stepped out, and looked at what I had done. It was both horrifying and magnificent and entirely preventable. But Karen had chosen drama over decency. I was just the guy who answered. Later, I'd find out the video had already hit social media thanks to the intern. The views were climbing, the hashtags were brutal, and the memes were merciless. Porsche pancake trended for 5 hours straight. Karen wouldn't know until morning what had happened, and I had no idea yet just how far she'd go to get revenge. But in that moment, with the barn open and the cows safe, I didn't feel petty. I felt practical. Maybe just a little vindicated. Because when someone parks a sports car between you and 20 lives depending on you, it's not just about convenience anymore. It's about doing what needs to be done, even if that means driving a harvester through a Porsche while the whole town watches. The sun had barely risen the next morning when Karen returned to the scene of the crime, or at least what she considered to be one. Her Porsche, or what was left of it, sat like a crumpled soda can in front of the barn. The paint was chipped, curling like burnt bacon. The windshield cracked like spiderwebs after a storm. I was already up feeding the goats when I heard the screech. Her designer flip-flops slapped against the dirt as she stormed toward the wreckage, her voice pitching louder with every step. She shrieked a wordless wail, a sound so intense it sent the ducks scrambling into the pond like there was a hawk in the sky. I stayed quiet. I knew what was coming. The pointing, the threats, the accusations of male aggression and rural barbarism. And right on cue, she turned phone already out, camera facing her, tears perfectly timed. "This man destroyed my vehicle. Look what he did. He's dangerous. Someone tag my lawyer." The way she paced in front of the car, flinging her arm toward it like she was hosting an infomercial for pity, would have been funny if it wasn't so obnoxious. I leaned against the fence post, sipping coffee, letting her monologue for her audience. Eventually she noticed me, or maybe she just needed a villain for her video. She stormed over, still recording, eyes blazing with a fury only an influencer on the verge of going viral can summon. "You're going to jail," she snapped. "Do you know how expensive that car was? I'll see you in court." I finished my coffee and motioned toward the laminated paper stuck to the barn door. It was the law. Emergency livestock access. Cited, highlighted, sealed in plastic. Her lips moved as she scanned it, but I could tell none of it registered. The words bounced off her like rain on a duck's back. "That's not real law," she spat. "My husband's lawyer is going to eat you alive." I said nothing. Just walked back toward the barn as she shouted after me. Every insult rolled off. This wasn't about the Porsche anymore. It was about the principle. The cows had needed me. I'd acted. She'd blocked life-saving access for vanity, and the law was clear. Karen didn't want logic. She wanted a stage. By mid-morning, the first of the news crews had shown up. Apparently, someone had sent the video to a local station, which then passed it along to a national affiliate. When I saw a van pull up with a satellite dish and a lady in heels trying to step over cow pies, I knew it had escalated. The reporter was professional, surprisingly polite. She asked for a comment. I kept it short. I opened the barn to keep animals alive. I filmed it because I knew she'd sue. The law's on my side. Then I went back to work. Karen, on the other hand, gave 3 separate interviews, each one more dramatic than the last. She clutched her yoga mat like a shield, wore a shirt that read "spiritual, not stupid," and claimed PTSD from the sound of heavy machinery. She said she feared for her life, that the harvester had emotional energy that triggered her trauma. Meanwhile, the internet had already dubbed her Porsche pancake and layered auto-tuned remixes of her scream over a dance beat. The town hadn't seen this much excitement since the mayor's llama escaped during Founders Day. Martha and Roy stopped by around noon. Martha brought lemon bars and legal printouts. She had found 2 more clauses supporting my actions, including one that covered heat-related emergencies for livestock. Karen didn't stand a chance in court, but she was already trying the case in the court of public opinion. Roy chuckled as he scrolled through the latest memes. One showed the harvester wearing sunglasses with the caption, "Don't block what you can't out-harvest." Another had Karen photoshopped into a NASCAR pit stop getting crushed by various farm equipment. It wasn't kind, but it was karma with a soundtrack. That afternoon, the sheriff showed up not to arrest me, thankfully, but to document everything. He had a stack of papers from Karen's lawyer demanding a civil investigation. He looked tired. I gave him the footage, the time-stamped feed logs, the vet statement about animal risk, and the weather report showing heat indexes high enough to cook an egg on a shovel. He nodded and set off. Off the record, between you and me, I'd have done the same thing. Karen, meanwhile, hadn't let up. She was now claiming that I had used the harvester as a weapon. She called it vehicular intimidation and said she was afraid to leave her luxury estate. Then she made the mistake of trying to use the HOA to push back harder. That's when things really got interesting.